Special report on the buck stops here today. Well, you finally saw bail after 7 months for some of Indian business's biggest names. They've been behind bars after being named as accused in the 2G scam. The 2G scam has been a watershed moment in the India story, a story that has changed in the global headlines over the last few years. Once the toast of global media, the India story now seems jaded and faded. Sandeep Hukan explores whether this is because of poor economics or poor politics.
2007 was the year of the bull, straight to 20,000 plus.
India-only economy. The Sensex have exploded to new heights.
Happily, Chorus has been acquired by an Indian.
There are humongous synergies between the operations of Air Deccan and Kingfisher.
The India headlines on the world stage just 2 years ago, and now the exact opposite. A story that has been turned on its head by a series of scams and many say poor politics.
The Supreme Court has given bail to 5 criminals accused in the 2G scam, a national debate closely monitored by the Supreme Court.
The 2G scam that saw some of India's biggest names behind the bars has been a key headline changer. Today, after 7 months in jail, the accused walked out on bail. But are these pictures symbolic of a larger problem with the India growth story? The bail came on a day corporate India was battling the euro virus. The fever heightened by the rupee depreciation. As demand for the dollar ups and foreign investors pull out of our markets, the Sensex plunged to a 2-year low. Adding salt to injury, the inflation debate in our parliament for the second day was lost in disruption. Not over any ideological clash, but a minutiae in the rule book. So has India, the toast of the world, touted as the next best thing to China, with rising count of billionaires, become a prisoner of scams and policy paralysis? Or is it a failure of our polity and imagination?
The whole world is going through a difficult period, and now we can't say India is an insulated economy. If you're looking at just as parliament, today if we work, we debate. Today there was a great, debate today on price rise, which we all want to talk about. Right. So I think if we can get something and not just a debate on criticizing the government, I think what we really need to do is suggestions. I think Parliament has to move one step higher.
The use of the term growth story in itself is a little bit flawed because there have always been concerns about the percolation of our economic high levels of growth to the lower strata. Global investor community. There is, now a aversion to risk in today's climate.
So do we first need to address the corporate India complaint about reforms and investment slowdown, that a lack of aggressive push for free markets has led to the free fall?
What is being argued for is greater financial liberalization, hoping that investment will come. Unless you give purchasing power to the people, who will buy what is being produced?
Corporate India's mantra for growth has been aggressive reforms. They argue, open up India's markets, liberalize further, and align yourself with the global economy. The left, on the other hand, argues that Occupy Wall Street's protests have been proof that Western models of development have been inadequate to address concerns of inequality. Many then argue, is it time for India to have its own unique model of development to strike a balance between growth and concerns of inequality? In New Delhi, Sandeep Hukan, NDTV.
All right, let's get to our debate now. Is the India story now jaded and faded, and is it a result of poor economics or poor politics? We've seen some of the biggest names in Indian business first spend 7 months in prison and now walk out on bail today. Is this enough to change, in a sense, the sense of confidence which has been depleted badly over the last many months within the business community? Let's introduce our panel this evening. Joining us from Hyderabad tonight, Renuka Chaudhary, who is of course senior Congress leader and spokesperson for the party. Also joining us on the program today is Gurcharan Das. He's been the head of Procter & Gamble, but he's now a columnist and author. Joining us as well tonight, Lok Sabha Member of Parliament Jay Panda represents the BJD. Also joining us on the program, somebody who must be a relieved man today. He's been representing one of the key ADAG officials, defending him in this particular case, Senior Supreme Court Advocate Ranjit Kumar. And with us in the Delhi studio, Dushyant Dave, a senior advocate with the Supreme Court. And finally, but not last of all, Sir Mark Tully, writer and broadcaster. If I may start, before I come, in a sense, to the politicians, Sir Mark, with you, because it's always useful, I think, to have a gaze that is both an insider's gaze and an outsider's gaze, because you really double up wearing both of those hats. What does the India story look like today? Because it's quite ironic that time was when the big names of Indian business would get listed as the billionaires and millionaires on the cover of Forbes and Fortune, and Indian middle class would derive their sense of confidence from those lists. Perhaps that was childish, but today we seem to have swung to the other extreme, where public opinion seems to either be self-flagellating or whipping somebody else.
Well, I think you put it absolutely right. I think you swung from one extreme to the other extreme. And I think the important thing is to try and get back into the middle and to try and see the problems seriously and properly. I think with respect to the business community, and I've got a son who's in this community, the business community tends to do this. They tend to overreact both positively and negatively. And this is very dangerous for the communities that the nations that they treat in this way.
NDTV's cricket app, Android and iPhone, fastest scorecard, special analysis, and much more. Download free. ndtv.com/apps.